Welcome, everybody, to Simulation Talk 347. It's like late night radio. What up, Val? Good to see you. The first one here. Such great photos of you and your family. Happy photos. Makes me happy. Okay. Let's put our Coterie website over here. Excuse me. Welcome, everybody, who are joining slowly on TikTok. And let's start our group on Discord. Boom, boom, boom. Stage is up. Let's also tell people that we're on. That'd be a good idea. Moved everything on YouTube again. Yet again. Chick. Get share of a link. Beautiful. Huh. Let's find out what that's about in a moment. Ooh, that is so cool. The Halo's only laser now with the laser itself. Oh, John, I think, tried the laser. Yeah, so you kind of looking not exactly correctly, John. So hopefully when you come on, I'll tell you. Man. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to Simulation Talk. Nico is in the house. John, how are you? I will read your reports later. Yeah, I saw. So if you only see it in the halo, you're not looking at it the right way. You can see it also in the little diffraction of the halo, but I would say that's actually an effect that happens because of what happens when it's hitting your cornea. If you have to kind of look through the surface. But what up, Nico? Red Fox, how you doing? Cub Dweller. Van Dweller, did you change it to Cub Dweller? Or is this like the... Are you guys fucking... Is this like... Are you guys trying to convince me that this is the... what is it? The... I don't know why I wanted to say the Isaiah effect for some weird reason. Maybe in this one, the Mandela effect is the Isaiah effect, and Van Dweller is Cub Dweller. Are you guys just trying to convince me this is one of these Mandela effects? Everybody's just changing their handles. It's parallel reality, bro. Frame of Mind. Good evening to you too as well. How you doing, brother? Talking to you, Nick.
I'm doing good. Just just about to eat in a little bit.
Oh, enjoy. I'm also about to eat a little bit, which means that this one is going to be relatively short. I can hear you a lot better this way. Myself a little less good with.
There's one thing I wanted to say about at the last session that I didn't get to, but there was one of the people on the panel were saying that not knowing how to write doesn't mean that you can speak, right? And I feel like because math is its own language, it would be like us saying, or Americans saying, well, I know a few Russian words, so I can speak and write fluently in Russian, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like to a Russian person, your talking or writing would be incoherent.
Yeah, but I think though the whole point that was missed there, and if it comes back on, that we can talk about it. But I think that because it all started from me quoting you, which I think is a good point about the fact that usually people who make these claims can't even write a linear equation. The point isn't that if they can't write a linear equation, that means that whatever they produce can't possibly be of value. That's not the point. If they, and I said it multiple times in that conversation, if they produce something that checks out and works, nobody cares if they can write a linear equation or not. Who knows? Maybe they did channel it. That's not the point, though. The point is, it's to illustrate the fact that that it actually is incoherent. And then when they're pushed on it, there's like, well, I don't know. It's just it's too complex to understand. It's like, yeah, if you don't understand what you're saying, and nobody else understands what you're saying, and you can't even describe the simplest thing in the domain that you're trying to describe, then you did not channel anything. You just basically made things up. That's I think the deeper point is.
Yeah. Okay, I agree with that.
And it's again, you know, I'm not like I shared some stuff with you. Obviously, I didn't share the name of the person because I want to be respectful. But like, people text me this all the time. And by the way, if you're here in the chat, the point isn't to ridicule you at all. In fact, I'm thinking about like writing them a little bit more to just kind of help people to understand what they're saying. But like somebody wrote to me like, I learned quantum physics in 3 days and it was easy. And I'm looking at this and I'm going like, what? Like first of all, why would you say that? Like, of course you didn't, right? Of course you didn't. So why say that? So unless we want to go with like this person's just crazy, which I'm not willing to say, because sometimes people are just, you know, they believe things that are just not, they're deluding themselves a little bit, and that's okay. But then when pressed on it, like very simply, I said, okay, can you tell me what an eigenvalue is? And then he said, well, I'm not big on linear algebra. And then he just copy pasted a thing from ChatGPT, which was very clearly from ChatGPT. And then I asked ChatGPT, this ChatGPT said, yeah, everything aside from the first sentence about not liking linear algebra. And then I said, okay, well, now not a ChatGPT answer. And then he said, it was Grok. Did you ever study black holes? Like, dude, like, okay, like, what are we doing here? Like, you're literally.
The funny part about that message is he just copy and pasted from Grok, but he left the LaTeX notation for the equation in his response. So it was like.
But if it's not, yeah, it wasn't even. I don't even think he was hiding it. And by the way, my point here is not to ridicule the person. It's just to say, truly, like a real question. Like I know it sounds like I'm just being facetious, but I am asking it as a real question. What are we doing here? What do you think we're doing right now? We're just wasting each other's time. Like, what are we talking about? No, there's no value. It's not like you're worth more as a person if you know quantum mechanics. So who cares? But why claim it? Why say a thing is like, oh, now obviously the obvious thing is like it's just basically like a self-aggrandizing thing to feel like there's something special about your interaction with that space. But there's so much special that you can actually find if you focus on the things that you can actually bring to the picture. Like some people are really good at healing other people, helping them move through very difficult scenarios. Yeah, go ahead.
All that I'm trying to say is you got to do the work, right? Like, and everyone has the ability to do the work. I will say that it takes years to get to that point, and it takes years of dedicating yourself full time to get to like a kind of a fluent point. But you know, I have a friend who got his PhD in neuroscience, and he started meditating. And he told me that he understands the psychedelic experience from his meditation work, but also from his education, right? And I kind of laughed and I said, I don't think you can. I mean, I've never gone super deep in meditation, so I don't know what's possible. So I am open to him maybe knowing something, but I told him like I don't know enough. All I know is that you have to go there. And then maybe you can come back and then tell me, yeah, I've been there naturally. Then I would maybe believe him. But I told him like, unless you've like gone there, I don't think you can just say that statement.
Oh yeah, if he never went, he has no idea. Exactly. And also, this is actually an interesting one. Val is saying quantum is a lot of philosophy, though, right? So I don't know if you meant it a little bit tongue in cheek, but if you meant it seriously, then no, absolutely not. Quantum, well, not quantum mechanics, but quantum, even though quantum mechanics gets up there, and Nico will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's correct. Quantum field theory, which is the main kind of most pervasive theory that, most kind of like cutting edge physicists studying and using in CERN, let's say. There's just the standard model, basically. As far as we know, it is the most accurate science that has ever existed. So, like, I don't remember the number of decimal points, but the calculations that are made in quantum field theory they're basically kind of like, I don't remember what it is, but like a crazy decimal point, like maybe 12 or something decimal points of accuracy in calculation. Is that correct, Nico?
Yeah, it's the most accurate and reproducible theory we have.
So it's the absolute opposite of a lot of philosophy. there's a lot of people who make philosophies around it, especially people who don't know quantum mechanics, but that's not quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is an extremely technical framework.
Yeah, and I think there is a philosophy to it, but the thing is, like, like right now we're making cell phones with transistor junctions up to 3 nanometers, right? So like to do that, you have very strong quantum effects, and you need to really understand quantum mechanics to do that. So there is this like engineering component where it's like I have the equations, we can model and we can predict the behavior of these systems at this scale. But then there is this like, the Penroses and the David Deutsches and the Sean Carrolls that take the equations and try to weave it together with some type of understanding or some coherent understanding, right? And I think that's where the philosophy component can come into. But I do think that is a very like it's like if you're listening to like a biblical scholar, like you want your biblical scholar to like know the original language the Bible was written in, as opposed to like the King James version, right? Like, and so I feel like you need to kind of like really be grounded in the equations to be able to interpret like a philosophy.
Are you equating theory with philosophy here?
Well, like, so I think I kind of am, and maybe that's a wrong way to do it, but the interpretation,
Just pull up.
right? So you hear these words like interpretation. So like the theory is rooted in the math, but like the interpretation of the theory is what I'm calling philosophy, which is like, what does this mean, right? Like, what does this mean as like the fundamental nature of reality?
Cosmo,
like, that's what I'm calling like the philosophy.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that there's a philosophy behind the theories. I was just asking for clarification. And this is it gets a little confusing for people for sure, because there's the descriptive part of the theory, which can be spoken in English, but those are very gross approximations. They're very gross. And like it just that in order to really get to the meaning of what in fact is meant by these things, you have to understand the mathematics. You have to understand matrices. You have to understand how they work together, like what is meant by these interactions, what particle couplings mean, like how those energies are measured. All of these things are extremely complex because they're based, as Deutsch always says, every observation is theory laden. So you're always looking at something through an assumption you already have. But what is meant in a scientific theory is the best overarching story that can be told, that kind of makes all the facts. It includes as many facts as possible that we can measure, and it works together. And all of them are incomplete, but in the end of the day, they're way better than just like, for example, all these concepts somebody asked about quantum tunneling. Okay, but what does that mean? Okay, quantum tunneling means that we kind of see a particle kind of disappearing and going through like a medium that it shouldn't be able to go through, and it's like a quantum effect. It just kind of disappears and appears on the other side. Okay, but what does that mean? But we also know, and this is not contentious what I'm saying right now, the idea of particles, and this is something that actually recently I've seen a lot. Kurt Jaimungal talk about, but it's a known thing that the whole particle model, that we knew that's not true for like 100 years. There's no particles. Like that's not there's no particle. Like there's no like a thing there, like a particle, like a ball. That's not a thing, right? There's and even when people say probability distribution, there's a medium of some sort. And yeah, we don't really know how to talk about it aside from the properties that it has, which actually is problematic, but it's a whole other can of worms, so we're not going to open it today. But basically, if you postulate a kind of a property to the quantum field, whatever that property is, it has a probability of becoming more or less active in different portions of the field, where it kind of goes almost like, think of it like a bubbling soup. And at any point where the bubbling soup, there's enough energy builds up here and it goes bloop, right? That little bloop is the particle for you. It's just like it's the movement of the medium and the excitation of the medium beyond a certain um, propagation of energy. And what's interesting, and this is why it's called quantum mechanics, it's always measured in quanta. So there's no half of a particle or excitation. There's no like that doesn't exist. It either got excited, it's a binary. It either became a thing or it did not become a thing. Now obviously there's a lot more to it than that, but that's basically what is meant by that. It's it's impossible to divide that excitation. That excitation is quantized. It's just one of it. Like you can't have a half of it. Like that's not a thing, right? Which, by the way, is kind of weird all by itself, to be quite honest. Why wouldn't it be continuous? To me, what makes more sense is that the fields are continuous, but we almost live like, imagine there's some kind of an ocean, right? Let's imagine that is the field, and then let's say that where this mic ends is where the surface where we live, and the ocean is the whole thing, and we're just on the surface. And then when the ocean is moving around like this, every time there's an excitation from the inside, we're not going to talk right now about what excites it. It's interaction with itself and other fields, but that again, it actually is problematic philosophically, but it doesn't matter. But like it kind of goes like this, right? And every time there's an excitation, it kind of peaks above the surface. That's one quanta of interaction, but the field is continuous. It's just that the excitations are just enough to protrude outside of the surface for just that one blip. Like that's all you can see. Now, it is weird because why wouldn't it then continue to protrude if it is continuous? So why wouldn't that one quanta keep protruding upwards? Why can't you have 1.6 of a quanta, 1.8 of why can't you have that? Well, I don't know, but that's interesting because, and this is where all this like dichotomy between the description and what the thing really is becomes very important, which is where philosophy comes in, because you have to kind of think about what these things what do you mean by that? Like what do you mean by what you're trying to describe is really the philosophical part. What do you mean by what is the thing that is there? What are you talking about? And very often physicists fall into this trap where they say, no, you don't they tell you, no, you don't understand. It's not anything. It's just the property itself. And I'm like, I think you spent too long with it to forget that, no, you have to be talking about a something simply because there's a difference between it and not it. And there's a difference between it and something else. Therefore, it is a something. I'm not postulating a physical object, but it is a something. It's not just a property, or if you want to say it, then that property is the something, but it is a something. Something is happening, right? So that's
right. And so one example that I think like Danny and I disagree on, right, with quantum, and this is me because I'm like very literal with my math, but like,
and to be clear, Nico knows a lot more of actual quantum mechanics. So yeah,
but the thing is, it's not that I'm very kind of
thank you, Vegas.
basic, and this example will illustrate this. Right? So
quantum basic bitch.
Paradoxes, but
yeah.
It's a very simple paradox for those that don't know. Schrodinger said, if you put a cat in a box and you have this detonator in the box with the cat that at any random point, which you cannot know, breaks this vial of poisonous gas and kills the cat, right? Now, cats aren't quantum particles. This is like a simplification, but the idea is if the cat were a quantum cat, the idea is that when the box is closed and you are outside observing this box, that the cat exists in a superposition of being both dead and alive, right? So that's kind of what a wave function is the cat is both dead and alive at the same time, simultaneously. And then when you open the box and the cat is alive, you've made a measurement, you've collapsed the wave function, and cool, your cat's alive. Now, the other interpretation of this is, okay, cool, you've branched the wave function, so the cat is alive, but there is another branch of the universe where the cat is dead. And it's a very literal kind of like, it's a very real branch of the universe. And I don't believe in that branch. Yeah. So that's kind of
wait. So the part that you saying the part that you're saying we disagree about is that the thing that we're postulating in the many worlds simply doesn't exist. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't like the many worlds. It bothers me. I don't like it.
But why? What is okay? What happens? What was the probability of?
The probability of the cat being
No, but what is it? I mean, like, fundamentally, what is it? What is that thing that you're imagining that events are made out of, so to speak?
well, so this is yes, this is the hard thing about quantum mechanics is like when you think about this problem, like particles exist in the superposition of states, and like because I am a very simple human, I
But
like to think of
but isn't that
particle.
but isn't that just a genuine question? Isn't that just a product of our not knowing enough? Like, isn't that not like it sounds like what you're saying that it's conclusive that they're just in a superposition? Okay, but that's from what we see from our perspective. Is it possible
Well,
that
so
they're part of
that's
a
that's
yeah?
the crazy thing is that it's not an abstraction because that probability like distribution function
Hmm.
works with electrons around atoms, right? And like you can see the density map of probability, and so it's like, and like you said, there is like at the end of the day, there is no particle. It's a field that when you interact with the field, it collapses into what looks like a particle and it has a position and a velocity, but the reality is that if you don't interact with it, it's everywhere at once.
Where
That's why quantum mechanics is so weird
where's
because
the
it has that weird property of superposition.
where does that where everything that was goes away to? Collapses how? What is the collapse? What does that mean? I know we say collapse, but what does that mean? It just disappeared, like it never existed?
Well, the collapse is interesting because when you make the measurement, you now have a definitive. You no longer have the wave equation,
From your
right? The
perspective,
particle
from
is
your
not
perspective, but I'm
described
asking
as
that
being
but
everywhere in this space. It's described as being in your hand
but
because you have this
I'm
right?
not asking what vantage point you have to it. It's see this what is smuggled in here from my perspective is that you're saying this thing that we see from our perspective must be the universal thing. Where when we don't think like this anywhere else in physics, we're saying if something was and then it isn't, I'm going to ask where it went. And it seems that in quantum mechanics, people who kind of take the Copenhagen interpretation, they just play by a different rule at this junction. They say it collapses. Well, and then when you ask what I just asked you, they say, "What do you mean the math works?" I'm like, "That math is just a description of the thing.
Yeah.
It's not the thing." So what happened to the thing itself? What happened to it? We're doing physics, not mathematics. So what happened to the thing, to the physical thing? And by the way, before you continue, if you guys want to follow on Twitch, it's LaserX83. LaserX83 on Twitch. Go follow now. Go ahead, brother.
Well, that's the fundamental question, right? It's like, what does it mean when a wave function collapses? And I think what it means from quantum field theory is like you have a field and you interact with that field, whether you shoot a photon on it, like you shine a light on it, or an electron on it, or you, whatever measurement you're doing, interacts with that field, and now the field's energy is in one point as opposed to being delocalized throughout the space.
But the field is
right?
still there. No, the field. No, that's not true. In quantum, I know enough about quantum field theory to know that the field is not postulated to disappear. It's just there's excitations that you see.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. Sorry, there's
Yeah.
an excitation, but the amplitude of that excitation
Yeah.
is a function of the field strength, right? So
In
like,
the field strength, is the field strength universal or is it local?
I think it depends on because there's a parameter in the Schrodinger wave equation for the field strength as a scalar. So I think it depends on whatever
The
your system
distance.
is. But
Okay, wait. So it is by the. So it
ultimately,
is scalars.
ultimately, when you let go of the particle, when you stop measuring it, it goes back to that field. You're right. It goes back to.
But it was
you
never.
know,
But it was never not part of the field. It's just you kind of saw a little excitation of the pond, so to speak. But the part
Yeah.
of the pond that became the excitation was never not part of the pond. It's always the part of the pond.
yeah.
So in in case of quantum field theory, nothing is postulated to disappear. But if you're gonna put on the table a collapse, and you're saying it's not a heuristic, like you just said it yourself. It's not like a way of talking about it. It's actually what it's doing. Okay, if it's actually doing this, where does the rest of the wave function go? It's just like it dematerializes, or then if because so I'm asking you, but I know what answer physicists usually give, which is that they say your question is inadequate because what we're talking about with the wave function is that it's a wave of probability. And at that point I go, what did you just say? Like, what does that mean? Like, and it's not like, listen, I thought about this. I'm not speaking from a naive perspective. This is not a legal move on the board. It's not. You can't say pure probability because it doesn't mean anything. Probability is a word. It's a word that denotes the how frequent something can happen in something with something.
Yeah.
With an emphasis on with an already existing thing. You don't get to say pure probability. That this is where I feel like physicists just lose the plot, because they say they're all day long with the equations, which are descriptors. They're not the thing. And then they somehow get convinced. It's almost like it gets ingrained in their brain that the descriptor is the thing. And in a mathematics world, that answer makes sense. In mathematics, what is it called? Well, probably probability theory in general, and just statistical mechanics, right? The answer, we're talking about the numbers that denote the probability itself. That answer makes sense in mathematics because mathematics is a world of abstractions. But if we're doing physics, that's not a legal move, is it not? Like, what am I missing here?
No, I mean, like if you so the probability, and this is like a really interesting thing because like if you measure an electron around like a proton, right? Like an atom,
Yeah.
If you keep measuring the position of that electron, you'll get ultimately like you'll see it, in one place and then another place, and if you do it a million times, you'll see a sphere, a cloud sphere, right?
Yeah.
And if you do it for like another atom, you can actually see like what looks like a dumbbell shape, right? And so like
orbitals.
there's a lot of so I guess you could just keep measuring it and you see a probability distribution cloud of where that particle can be. But it's, when physicists talk about, position, they talk about probabilities. And because you can't know exactly where something will be.
But we're not, but that, but Rabbi,
on the
I understand,
expectation.
but that's a limitation of our ability to interact with whatever the thing actually is. But the question is, and it might be the case that whatever it is, it exists in some kind of a state, let's call it, that from the perspective, from the kind of thing that we are, either because of the size that we are, or because of the dimensions we occupy, for whatever reason, it's very likely that whatever it really is, like, listen to how I'm using language here. It's really important. Whatever it really is, the way it's angled towards us, so to speak, might be in such a way that we can not only perceptually can't grok it, we literally are positioned in such a way that we will always get some kind of a very limited perspective of it. That's probably the case, right? For most things. But it is not the same as saying that the ultimate thing that it actually is what we see from the vantage point we have. It might describe everything that we need to know in quantum mechanics to make sense of how things propagate, right? But it is not the same thing as saying, therefore, that's all there is to know. Again, container problem. You always get to ask, okay, but why that? So I'm asking, what is the thing itself? It sounds like every time I ask you the question, you describe to me the process by which we arrived at these conclusions, which always involves, we measure the particle. Well, let me just, I guess, repeat what I think you said to even make sure that I'm even following what you're saying exactly. What you're saying to me is, well, look, all we know is what we can measure, right? So what we do is we measured the particle, we see it appear here. We measure the particle, we see it appear here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and over time we see these orbital shapes, which are, by the way, they're really pretty, and actually I think they're profound if you really start thinking about what they really are.
Yeah.
But there's some kind of protrusions of energetic pathways, let's call them, okay, of something. Let's not even call it a particle, of an excitation of a particular field. So I'm asking, I'm not asking from the naive perspective of like that I want to be able to grab it and touch it. Like I understand it's not the same kind of thing like things in our world. I get that part, but it is a something. So I'm asking, whatever it is that is unfolding this way, if you just say, well, this is how the fields are, right? The reason that
Well, I think ultimately it's energy, but the thing is like,
why is the energy different? Wait. Why is the energy different between the different fields? It's not just energy; it's properties of fields that are very different, right? Or
yeah,
appear
I
to be
mean,
different.
that's the thing. That's the thing that's really complicated, right? Is like and I don't understand quantum field theory like in the standard model because it's very complicated, right? Like the way that like mass is a specific perturbation in specific fields, right? Whereas an electron is a perturbation in the electric field.
Mhm.
So that one's a little bit easier, but it has properties of mass. So there's this other like excitation in that field as well. But I don't necessarily like, you know, in terms of like what it is. I guess ultimately it's an excitation in a. I think of it as an energy field because these fields have energy, but I think there's a lot more like kind of nuance and different flavors of fields to it.
So would it be fair to say that all physics does, and no physics the way it's practiced today can ever do, is just look at these relationships of interaction and just kind of make sense of the rules by which they seem to be interacting, but it's not really asking, nor have it actually ever did ask the question about the ground of all reality. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think we can. Yeah, exactly. I think like you grabbed it earlier where you said that we tend to describe the world in terms of things we can measure, right? And so it's, you know, it has a handle, and so like when you push beyond that and go deeper, I think oftentimes physicists hit limits because they tend to think only in handles,
Yeah.
and
Well,
not in like
I guess I'm.
what is that?
Yeah,
Right?
and
Just keep going.
yeah, and I have no gripe with that. The only thing I don't understand, I actually don't. I don't know why physicists can't just say that. I don't know why physicists can't just say, "Hey, we that it is what it is." Kind of like, yeah, that's the law. Like, but the reason that physicists came up with things like hidden variables is exactly because of that, which to me is hilarious because they're basically trying to say, well, there will be these hidden variables by definition completely unapproachable to our measurements ever that somehow magically dialing up the things behind the scenes. How is this not the same as just saying the Wizard of Oz? It's just like, oh, it's just that thing that happens. It's like,
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? You should listen to the Penrose
I started, yeah.
Richard Mungall interview that he did
I s-
because he said that, you know, oh, all these physicists think that, you know, there's dark matter, but it's actually dark gravity. It's not matter.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
It's actually, and so he decouples gravity from matter in a way, and what's really interesting is he then presents this argument for the wave function being collapsed by gravity, not by. It's really wild. I don't know if he's got
wait,
demented,
but that's
or I don't know if he's
no.
just
So
a genius.
so
But
I
like,
I have to
I'm just watching it. And
yeah,
kind of
I
like,
have to watch the whole thing, but I'll be honest with you, I don't think he's getting demented, but he's definitely getting older. And it's noticeable. So, like for example, what you just said, I have to look at the nuance of how he said it. But that what you just said, if he said it exactly that way, that's a straw man. Nobody in physics actually thinks that what they mean is actual matter. Like they think it's the most likely explanation, but nobody's like seriously married to the proposition it has to be matter. They're just dark, whatever. Like they don't know. They know it interacts through gravity. so that's it. So to say it's just gravity is not saying anything different than any, as far as I know, physicists who actually study this. That's what everybody are saying. They're like, we don't know. We just know it interacts with gravity. So that's, first of all, that's, I don't think any physicist worth their salt would like put all their life saving, like if they would be asked, like, do you think it's for sure some kind of a form of matter? No, they would not sign that contract. That nobody thinks this. Not like seriously. But the other thing that I've noticed he's doing is like he's giving these false kind of idea. Like I realize I listen actually on my way back home right now. I listened to the portion where he's talking about. It was a clip from that conversation, and it's titled "I Shouldn't Have Touched Consciousness," like where he talks about his whole thing with microtubules and how he arrived at it. And he gives this example where he's like, "Hey, if it doesn't make any sense to me, like this idea that consciousness collapses the wave function," and his justification for it not making sense to him, he's saying, "Look at this is absurd. Like let's imagine a planet that there's no consciousness there whatsoever." And then some probe takes a picture of that planet, comes back to Earth, sends the image, and only when a conscious being seeing the image, then the wave function collapses and it becomes the thing that it was on that planet. That's nobody's argument. Nobody said that's the argument of the consciousness collapsing the wave function. It's like, what are you talking about? So anyway, I just noticed that he's kind of like his argumentation. He's arguing with ghosts that nobody actually utters seriously. So that to me was kind of a little weird. But I haven't finished watching the conversation in full. So, and I think you wanted to say something.
Kind of a brutal. It's to be honest, it's not easy to listen to. And obviously he's a goat. He's got a Nobel Prize. He did a lot of really amazing work with black holes, etc. So like, he's accomplished more than many physicists will accomplish in their life.
He's a legend. There's no question about that. I'm just saying that right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's a legend, but you got to know what. Even Mike Tyson knew when to stop getting into the ring. It's just, I guess in the physicist case, it's like it's harder because it's. I knew that what's his face, Noam Chomsky, needed to retire his gloves. And it wasn't when he started looking like a grandma. It was when he started giving Elon Musk advice about how to build rockets. I was like, dude, shut the fuck up.
What's interesting is Lawrence Cross. He's still very lucid and coherent. And he said in a Brian Keating podcast that he stops listening to like Penrose and even Weinstein.
He never listened to Weinstein. He never listened to Weinstein. Yeah,
gets into this territory where there's no handle, and he's just like, I just stop listening when there's no handles, right?
Yeah. Well, Lawrence Krauss is notoriously very what's the word? Let's just say dry. He's very dry about these things, but he's also very often wrong while being dry. So it's a very complicated space. Look, in the end of the day, I think that people, I am kind of becoming convinced more and more, and I'm trying to. This is one of my kind of. This is the thing that I'm trying right now to crack. Like, there's something there that I don't quite know how to approach with words yet, but it has something to do with consciousness basically being the only actual object. Like, there's no actually anything objective aside from consciousness. Like, it's the other way around. Like, consciousness is the most objective thing, and it can't be anything else. And it's not, by the way, it's not just to say idealism, so consciousness is the most fundamental. From all perspectives, from the immediate experiential perspective, but even from the analytical perspective, the only thing that can count as a thing, in other words, an object, is consciousness, nothing else. And it is also the thing by which everything also becomes an object. It's obvious that just like Bernardo Kestrop was saying with the conversation with Alex O'Connor, we said, well, this microphone is not really a microphone in existence. It's just a field of quantum fields. To me, as the observer, it is a microphone. I'm defining it as a microphone, all of that. So then we know that's obvious that we get that part. But I'm saying that even even the fact of the essence of the consciousness itself is by itself that kind of a thing. It is so and the reason it's so different is because when we ask questions about what we consider the external world in science, what we really ask is this thing an actual thing, or is it just appearing to be that kind of a thing? And if it's only appearing to be that kind of a thing, why does it appear to be that thing versus any other thing? Is it made from other things? And do they appear to be a thing? And then you just keep doing this, right? Just like, what is the difference between what it appears to be and what it really is? That is always riding behind the question, right? But here's why consciousness is so different and why it confuses so many people, in my opinion. In the case of consciousness, the question, is it a real thing, does not apply. That's not a legal question when you ask about consciousness, because you don't need to. Why? Because if you're going to ask, is it a real thing or just a thing that seems to be that way? The seeming itself is what consciousness is. It's the seeming. It's not, it's the fact that it seems like anything at all. The second it seems like anything, that's it. This is it. Fully, like, you don't need to do anything else aside from experiencing this one tiny blimp of something happened. That's it. You establish consciousness in full. That's why it's so different, and that's why it ultimately, I think it has something to do with, obviously I have a long way to think about this, but I think my intuition tells me that it has the ultimate answer, the ultimate question will be hiding behind the concept of self-reference. So, in philosophy, there's the problem of reference in general, which is like how symbols then mean something. How do you attach value to things? But then there's the self-reference, which is actually like double trouble, because it's like, how can something refer to itself, but because it already is what it is, so how does it create a symbol to itself to represent itself that does not perceive itself not from the inside but somehow from the outside, which is the thing that creates this infinite loop? And that's somehow it happens, but it's kind of like the ultimate self-reference problem. Now I don't have the answer or anything like this, but I'm like, that's one of the things I'm really kind of working hard and trying to figure out on a daily basis. Oh, we have a lot of stuff. Sorry guys, I was kind of ignoring a bunch of this. Nico, what are you doing to me? Just too fun to talk to you, bro. Laser, tiny slit window. Danny. Oh yeah, this is good. Wait. He's accusing me of being a Mossad agent. Shit, is on to me. Damn it. Gotta pack it up. Wait, he actually, it's funny. This guy, I think, hold on. This guy, I gotta tell you something. I think it's the same guy. Is it the same guy that did also the lecture in Holland about my work? I think it is.
Hey Danny, I saw you in the Einstein files.
I don't even know what the Einstein files are, or that's what it's. But that's
archive of a bunch of forbidden science.
Well, man, I listen, but that's what a secret agent would say, that they don't know the thing that that exposes them. So is this the same guy that did the lecture? And do you know? Can you help me with this? Like the name of this guy? What's his name? Bro Sanchez. Is it the same guy that calls himself something absurd? Like let me see. Hold on. I want to make sure if it's the same guy, because if it's the same guy, it's extra funny. I'll tell you why. Bro Sanchez. Hold on. This is hilarious. YouTube. Let me see, because he would have to have. It might be a different guy. Bro Sanchez. Hold on. No, it looks like a different guy. Well, anyways, I gotta watch the whole thing. Can you share the link? Because I can't find the expose Hebrew simulations. Flaws in the Hebrew simulation source code. It's amazing. But if it's a different guy, it's not as funny. Still funny, but not as funny. But I gotta find out first of all if it's the same guy. See, if I would be a Mossad agent, I would already know. Not saying astral projection is the sense of literary non-clipping through space and remote viewing.
Dude, 10K views in one day.
Not bad, baby.
That's kind of a lot, no?
I mean, listen, bro. People who talk about the laser, it works. Like it works. It's great. Funny you should mention Penrose. As soon as I get on here, I had my first peer review go off on my thesis this morning and say you should read Penrose for homework. Hint, hint, you shouldn't. No, I'm just kidding. Which he said because he hastily concluded that my thesis is quantum consciousness. It's not. I submitted it for preprint early in the morning also, and it should become available on Monday or within the coming week. I hope then I can openly talk about it. Oh, yeah, man. Wait, why would you not be able to openly talk about it? If it does publish, yeah, that would be great, man. I would love to talk about it. Okay. Actually, this is the Mossad wish they could have thought of the whole laser thing. That would be. You don't even need a laser. Deep meditation can get you there. All right. Yeah. I've heard this many, many times before. Data, guys. Come up with data. CTE. Okay, I'm trying to go through the comments now. There's a bunch of them. Just living it, same da-da-da. Dark is unknown. Yeah, that's all it means, really. Words are hard. No one knows or will know in this lifetime. I mean, we'll know something. Nothing is real but consciousness itself. Well, it's the only thing you can substantiate fully, because all is required to substantiate it in full is just the fact of having it or being it. That's it. That's why it's so different. It requires no justification whatsoever.
Wait, so that guy is claiming that 90% of your guests are Israeli or Mossad?
Well, Nico, you're definitely one of the leading experts on this channel. So we didn't know this about you, but apparently you are.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's awesome. You don't even need. Wait. And again, just reminding everybody, if you guys want to follow on Twitch, it's LaserX83. Look, boy. Saturn Realms is saying, on my breakthrough, my eyes were closed. I saw a vast red line grid amidst black void with a large Kefafot type being behind me. Felt like Ganesha. Is that common experience? I don't know. I've never had it. Also, I'm trying to just... The silence is me trying to get through as many comments as possible and identify a couple that we can kind of answer. Squid. I've never seen a squid, but Hassan is saying, if I'm Mossad, I'm cooked. If you're Mossad, I'm cooked. That's amazing. How you doing, brother? That's great. I could get paid for commenting. This is conspiracy theories galore. Interesting mind tradition is the consciousness of God that is the ultimate reality. The origin of the universe is consciousness, and everything less amazing comes from that. It's not that random physical things lead to consciousness. It's consciousness that lead to everything else. Yep. And again, this is a very idealistic perspective. That's idealism, basically. But isn't, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Hassan, but isn't like Allah is considered to be the one true God, just like Jehovah is? No? Is it not the case? Is it not the case? So from what I understand, after now speaking to quite a few leaders, at least in the Christian community, this kind of more modern idea that people have that Christians believe that God is essentially us is not true. Like that's not what they believe. God is God. It's a separate entity, and we're made in the image of God, but it is not us. It's not the same thing, and in fact, it's blasphemous to say that. So in Islam, isn't it the same? Isn't Allah basically the one true God, and it's different than humans and other beings? Allah consciousness existed and existed alone, and he used words to create being. Yeah, well, in the beginning was the word, I guess. So Muslims go by that too. The trilemma is as follows. When describing reality, one runs into these issues: arbitrary starting points, circular reasoning, or infinite regress. Thing is, I believe it is trifecta, not a trilemma. I like it. So let's go one by one. I like this. So the first one, when describing reality, one runs into these issues. Arbitrary starting points. I would say to this one, that's the only way. It's not arbitrary, it's observational. So you start with something you observe, and then you ask, what is the thing that I think that means? And then I test it. So like I tested by either postulating about what's going to happen next, or I'm probing it in such a way that I'm supposing what it will cause. And if I guessed correctly, then the next step will follow what I thought would happen. And or the way I would probe it would yield a result that I expected to see. If I'm wrong, I'm reframing or error correcting and asking another question. Well, if it's not this, then maybe it's this. And you're asking not too far away. And then you keep going. You observe, you ask a question. You observe, you ask a question. You observe, you ask a question. So trial and error like that the whole time. So it's not arbitrary. You start from a starting point that you perceive, and then you use intellect to kind of go beyond that, right? So it's conjectures and testing all the time. And then you come up with axioms, which are basically kind of ground observations that you cannot go beneath, but eventually you might be able to go beneath them. But those are axioms. So I would not say it's necessarily arbitrary, even though people do choose arbitrary ones. But if you do good science, you shouldn't choose arbitrary points. Circular reasoning is definitely a big one. I agree with you. One of them is actually Kurt Jaimungal did a video recently about energy and how if you really kind of go down to it, like physicists would have to admit that we don't really know what energy is. It's kind of self-defined, so to speak. So it is a circular argument, but we use whatever happens in one of the directions of the argument to basically make other predictions, which spin some reasonable material that we call science. But you're right. There is definitely a lot of circular argument ultimately, which I would claim ultimately results from this self-reference problem. And infinite regress is actually, I'll be honest, infinite regress is actually not a problem. So if you allow for the possibility that existence is in fact infinite, even though we cannot perceive what that would mean, if it in fact is infinite, then infinite regress is the case. That's it. That's what infinite regress is. The fact that infinite regress is just frowned upon in science simply because if it is this infinite regress, it doesn't allow you to do anything with it because it's just kind of, okay, well, I guess that's what it is. And you kind of throw everything in the air and you're no longer trying to answer the question. But yeah, I mean, it's possible that
that's what I feel like. So like when it comes to the hard problem of consciousness, one of the things that Kurt Jaimungal asked, what's that biologist guy's name?
Michael Levin. Michael Levin. Michael Levin. Michael Levin.
Michael Levin. Yeah. Like, okay, let's say you crack the hard problem of consciousness and you have now a theory. What does that theory even produce? Right? And he kind of got stumbled on that. And he's like, I guess that's a really good handle to think about how to solve that problem.
Well, that's exactly what you just said is exactly my my thing where I was talking about the other day about if you the reason that I'm not seeing this is what I was telling Ghost, that the reason I don't really see any prospects of solving the hard problem of consciousness is because in order to solve it, you first have to show, before you even go about doing that, what principle you're going to be using. Because if you don't know what the principle is, then you're definitely not solving it, because it's about the principle. So if you're just going to go in a roundabout with many, many, many details, there will be somewhere there you lost your path, for sure, 100%, because of the self-reference problem. But if you first kind of lay out the rule, you say, okay, I'm going to solve it by showing that X is Y and this is Y, let's say. Okay, now there's a reason to listen to this. But you have to, the reason that the hard problem of consciousness is so hard is because we don't even know what the principle might look like. Like, even not that we don't know what the principle is that we don't even know what the principle can possibly be. Forget about the answer. It's like that's the problem with it.
But if it is a quantum phenomenon, then we should be able to, in theory, write a wave function for it, right? Unless it's computationally irreducible, where there's just no way
but it would not. But it would never
that,
be. No. But then what you would be saying is that when these quantum states are present and they interact with either microtubules or anything else in the brain in this way, then consciousness becomes a thing. That's what you're saying. But that's not explaining anything. The hard problem of consciousness was not solved. In fact, it wasn't even touched. That you just said magic happens here. But why the magic happens was the question. It's just like Sam Harris illustrated this best when he said, imagine that you would have a situation where all of a sudden you actually found it. Like, forget about explaining it. Let's say you figured it out. Like you made a brain from scratch. It was not a living thing, and you made a brain from scratch. You dialed it in to exactly the situation that it should be in. And then you found that in between 5 to, let's just go crazy. Like when you jump started, you discover that, I'm just making this up, yeah? But like, imagine you discover that if you, in order to entry point consciousness, the only way to jump start it is that you have to be super, super accurate. You have to go between 2.6 hertz to 2.8 hertz. I don't know why, but like, let's just say that, right? And then if you hit it right in the middle, boom, boom, there's consciousness. Oh, here it is. And then if you go right above or right below, there's no consciousness. Even if you did all of this, you still did zero work, explaining why that happened. You produced no actual explanatory power at all. You just showed you show the correlation. When this thing happens, then consciousness arises. And if in that junction, the answer that people want to insert there is, well, that's what consciousness is. Well, all you said is, well, then that's things how they are. Things are how they are. That's what you said. And then why did you even bother trying to answer anything? That's the problem with the hard problem of consciousness. That's what I'm saying. There's not even the principle, even in theory, even like that, nowhere remotely visible.
Well, the hard problem of consciousness then feels like it's the final question at the end of that movie, right? Which is like, what's the meaning of the universe? And
that's exactly right.
42.
That
means it's an arbitrary question that has an arbitrary answer. It's meaningful to us because we are self-aware, but it's to the universe and to the computational nature and emergence of everything, it's not the right question, right?
Yeah. So also, well, no, it's not that it's not the right question. Is that, thank you so much, Ivalikon, I appreciate you. I've said this before, so it's not new information, but the thing that blows my mind more than anything about existence is that there is some answer. Like, even if nobody will ever know it, the thing that blows my mind more than anything else is that there is an answer. Isn't it crazy? It's wild. There's an actual answer. There's a reason why it is. And, as Hassan said, in Islam or any other belief system, there's just a simple answer, but it's not really an answer. It's just kind of like, it's a decision to say, the buck stops here. That's it. That's all we can ever know. We're not allowed to ask questions beyond it. It's blasphemous. Again, I'm not even. It's not like in a berating manner. I'm just stating a fact. That's just how it is in the three major religions or any monotheistic religions. It's this is the one ultimate God. It is the source of everything. It doesn't make any sense to ask questions beyond it. That's the answer, right? But if you are playing the game of actually wanting to find out, then even that has to be answered. So that, but there is an answer. It's like to say that God knows is not the same as saying I understand what the answer is. Is saying it's not for me to know, and that I respect that. That's fine. But if you're doing science, we're talking about people who are doing science. That's not the game they're in. So that the fact that there's an answer is like the most mind-blowing thing to me. Like, and I'm pretty sure nobody will ever know it. But the fact that it exists is just like so Hassan is saying in Islamic theory, first thing God created was pen, and he told it to write everything. So in essence, everything is code. It's written. The world is a simulation, or is Quran describing it an illusion? It's not real. When we die, we wake up and we realize this world was but a dream. We will feel we lived on earth for only a day. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me under any theoretical framework of a simulation, for sure. Val is saying arbitrary just means standardizing starting point here. Arbitrary, well, depending how you use it, it can mean this, but I think arbitrary in the context of what was said, I think was meant kind of like you just kind of pick one. And if you mean it that way, sure. I mean, there's an arbitrary point where you note that you noticed something, but then from that point, it's no longer arbitrary because you proceed through some logical back and forth with reality. And I want to speak on Messenger, can find out what the answer. It seems like the fact that we can ponder these things, an answer would not be impossible to find. No, it seems pretty clear that it is impossible to find because in order to find it, you would have to be outside of reality, which is blah, 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 what does that even mean? Because when people say, "Well, it's some external realm," then they no longer mean what I mean by the word reality. When I'm saying reality, I mean everything, including the realms beyond and like everything. San is saying there's a really good book on consciousness called Divine Reality, and it addresses the issue of consciousness and existence. It does reject an infinite regress. Highly encourage the book Divine Reality. It explained philosophical argument for God and consciousness and reality very well. There you go. James is saying I participated in Kurt's Pace 1 contest. However, consciousness-based theories aren't very popular on this channel. Yeah, because it's as Nico said on this live. What's the handle? What is the handle? Huh? Can you boost Nick's mic by 8 decibels? It's very specific. It's already at max, so I can't really. Unfortunately, that's what it comes. Hassan is saying the hard problem of consciousness is one of the best arguments for existence of God, the ultimate consciousness. There's no scientific answer for consciousness. That's why it's a hard problem. Not quite. The hard problem is because there's no principle at hand or even possible to postulate. That's really what makes it so hard. What do you want to say, Nico?
No, I was going to say I'll boost my mic.
There we go.
Level.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to try get through the comments quickly because I have to jump off in a moment. I think pondering and questioning and reflecting is important. We can understand the why, but not understand the how. or we are the process by which it tries to understand how, which I understand in monotheistic religions is a blasphemous train of thought, but it seems to be what's actually happening, which is that what existence is doing is trying to understand. So there is a thing that quote unquote God does not know, which is why. And to me, that's actually poetic. We are the novelty. Yeah, we're kind of like this like infinite thing that if you want to use the God language, you can say we are the kinds of things. We're not the only things, but we're the kinds of things that God made to surprise him. Because otherwise it's just kind of boring. Okay, so I have to adjourn very quickly. Also, it's a good time because we have 111 listeners. If you guys want to follow me across platforms, it's Danny Goller on Instagram and TikTok. It's Goller Danny on X, LaserX83 on Twitch, and Dango Thoughts on YouTube. DANGO Thoughts on YouTube. You can also follow my new channel on Spotify, 0 to 1 with Danny Goller, from Earthbound Minds to Cosmic Citizens, a show that purely talks about the future of humanity and what we should do in order to make a pretty great one. You can also join the membership program on YouTube. It will give you early access to all my content, access to my weekly lives for members only, in which we dive much deeper into all kinds of topics. Usually happens on Sunday. Come join that one. It's a lot of fun. And if you join from the second tier upwards, make sure you email me to the email listed there so I can email you an invite for monthly Zoom calls. Also, if you want to check out the stuff about the laser and protocols and stuff like that, that's all on codeofreality.com. Thank you so much, brother. And if you want to share your experiments with the laser, you can go to veilbreak.ai, veilbreak.ai, and you can see other people's protocols, and you can leave your own protocol, and you can do this anonymously. I put it right now in the chat on YouTube on Dango Thoughts. If you want to contribute to the film, if you want to donate to the post-production of the film, we're still very much receiving donations with gratitude. You can find the trailer for the movie in the description of this live, and it has the GoFundMe page in its description, or you can just go to Dango Thoughts on YouTube and search for The Discovery, and you'll see the trailer. Under the trailer, there's the GoFundMe page. If I'm telling you, you're gonna love the film. It's Aaron Venden, the director, is just like a master of his craft, and there's Chris Paris, our producer, is also an editor on the film. Just exquisite, incredible work. And if you donate over $1,000, you will automatically be added to a list of people who would see the movie all at the same time together for the first time ever as a world premiere with Q&As with us, and it's going to be a blast. But of course, we're going to make sure that everybody sees the film eventually, working on distribution as we speak. And what else? Come join our Discord community. Incredible community of people sharing these ideas. You can find the link to it in the description, in my link tree in the description on TikTok, and also on the main page on YouTube. Third link from the top, I believe. What else? If you're potentially interested in the retreat that I'll be doing on February 28th, email me. If it's just do on LaserX83, because people confuse it all the time. I give people other email for the retreat, and they're emailing me about other things. So I don't want to confuse you, because I have to kind of ignore your email if it's about the wrong subject. So just email me to lasersimulationx@gmail.com. lasersimulationx@gmail.com. If you're interested in the retreat, let me know, and we'll set up a call, and we'll talk about it. We'll see if you're a good fit. It's going to be very intimate. There's not going to be a lot of people, at least for the first one. What else? I think that's about it. Going to be releasing my Substack finally soon. I keep saying it. It's just like every time I have to finalize my first piece, it's just like things. But I love the things. So thank you so much, everybody. Guru, our incredible moderator. Thank you, brother. You're always on top of it. You're so incredible. I really appreciate you on YouTube and on Discord. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for our guests. Nico, your house scientist, I appreciate you. John, thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to read all your information a little bit later today. Mick, Ghost, can't wait to talk to you about your theory about heart problem of consciousness. JK, thank you for joining. And thank you, everybody. Yoni, Hassan, and all the people that came and always coming. If you're a new listener, if you're an old listener, I appreciate you. Without you, this channel is really nothing. So I really, really appreciate you coming, talking, debating, asking questions. it's a blast. I really appreciate this community that is forming. Let me see if there's anything that I'm missing that is crucial. So no, I think we covered most of it. All right, and we'll be talking more about this, Hassan. I appreciate you, brother. Casey, see you, brother. Thank you so much for everybody. Evil Icon joining on TikTok as well. I think I covered everything. Pretty sure. Love you guys. Peace and love. See you tomorrow. Ciao. Have a good night, everyone.